And then we're going to get started on these two problems as a review of what we had done last week. After we do these two problems, then I'm going to talk a little bit about the quiz that you had taken. Most people did take it. And if you're not happy with the results, etc., and how you can get your mark to be higher if you're not happy with what's happening so far. So that let's first talk about, though, these two problems that have to do with writing equations of lines, starting with an equation of a line. Sometimes we're going to actually start with the equation of a line, and sometimes we're going to be asked to write the equation of the line. And the first question here asks to find the slope of the y-intercept of the line. And if you recall, we know when we have a line, an equation of a line, in what we call the y equals mx plus b form, where the y equals something times x plus b, the coefficient, the number that's in front of the x is the slope, the b is the y-intercept. So when we're given an equation of a line, and we're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept of the line, what we have to do is put it into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b form, and then we'll look at the number that's in front of the x, that'll give us a slope, and we'll look at the number that stands alone, the constant, and that will give us the y-intercept. So I'm aiming to get the y alone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to minus 3x from both sides. Because I want to get the y alone. So this will give me negative 5y equals negative 3x plus 15. I can't combine these these terms because they're not like terms, so I leave them separate. And then, of course, to get the y alone, I'm going to divide everything by negative 5 and try to simplify as much as I can. So this will give me y equals, well, the 3 and the 5 I can't do anything with, but a negative over negative becomes a positive. So this is 3/5 x. And 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. So now we have our line in the y equals mx plus b. Remember, this can be a negative sign that just means you're adding a negative number. So therefore, the slope of our line is 3/5. And our y-intercept is negative 3. And you don't have to go any further than say negative 3, though if you want to be really accurate, you should say it's a 0.0 negative 3, because when the x is 0, the number that's next to it, the y, is the y-intercept. Now, nobody put this answer on the chat. Okay, if you forgot to simplify and you left it that way, it would be totally correct. In other words, if you said the slope is negative 3 over negative 5, that's totally correct. If you said the y-intercept is 15 divided by negative 5, that's totally correct also. The only problem will arise when you're trying to do this on a multiple choice test, and they won't give you these answers. The answers they're going to give you are the reduced or simplified answers. So really try and simplify your answers, but it's not wrong if you didn't do that. Okay. I would thank you so much, Oriana. I think it was Oriana. No, it was Naya. Thank you, Naya, for bringing that up. And I would like to be able to be giving more credit because not all the marks on the first quiz were as good as you and I would have liked. I'd like to see everybody getting 100. I'd love to be able to give everybody an A+ in this class. Of course, you have to do the work. So I had decided that what I'm going to do is to get more participation is after class, I'm going to look at the chat, and whoever has put an answer down on the chat for a problem, even if it's not the right answer, if you attempted to answer a question on the chat or you wanted to make a comment on the chat that was pertinent to what we were talking about, I'm going to use that as extra credit. So I'm going to keep a list of all the people who are, so to speak, more participating. Of course, you can always open up your speaker and speak. I'm perfectly happy to listen to people speak, and you can interrupt me. Probably takes a while until you get through, so just interrupt me. It's fine. Let's get more involvement in this. Okay, so let's now look at the second question. Write the equation of the line with the slope of -3 and passing through the point 1, 4. Now, that takes a little bit more time, so I'm going to give you a little more time to do this one. I'm going to stop here and give you a little time to do it, even though we had time before, and then we'll see if we can come up with the answer. Again, if anybody has any questions. Okay. Okay, I'm going to be erasing the top problem now, so I'll have room to work the second one. Okay. Okay, so you're trying to write an equation of the line, which means you're writing something in the form y equals mx plus b. See if you can come up with something. Anybody have a result they'd like to put on the chat or would like to say in class? Okay, so I think we're gonna just have to do this together. I know this is, I find, one of the hardest topics to do. Okay. Naya came up with y equals 1x minus 3. Let's see if we can come up with an answer. Okay, remember what we were told? We were told that the slope is -3, and it goes through the point 1, 4. Which means that when the x is 1, the y is 4. Well, whenever we want to write the equation of a line, we want to start out trying to fill in the trying to fill in what the slope is. We worry about the y-intercept at the end. That's just the opposite of what we do when we're trying to draw the line on the graph. There, we start with the y-intercept and then work with the slope. But when we don't have the equation, the first thing we want to focus on is the slope. And in this case, we were told what the slope was. We were told that the slope is -3. Now remember that the slope is the m. That means in place of the m, I'm going to put -3. So this will give me as my start y equals -3x plus b, which is a start. If you gave me even that much, you were half right. Of course, that half right is not good enough. You want to finish up the problem. So how are we going to figure out what this b is? We can't say, remember, the b is the y-intercept. We can't say that that is 4, even though the y here over here is 4, because the x, in order for it to be a y-intercept, the x has to be 0. But what we also know is that any point that's on the line has to fit into the equation, which means if I replace the x with 1 over here, the y will have to be replaced with 4. Whatever point is on the line, its coordinates, its x and y value fit into the equation. So if I replace the x and y with those numbers, I'll get 4 equals -3 times 1, because -3x means -3 times x, plus b. Well, -3 times 1 is -3. So if I want to find, so I'm getting 4 equals -3 plus b. And if I want to get what the b is, I've got to get the -3 to the other side. So 4 plus 3 is 7. That's what equals b. So it turns out, in order for this point to be on the graph, the b would have to have been 7. So here's my equation. Y equals -3x plus 7. Which means in this particular equation, the slope is -3, which of course we knew we had that from before. And the y-intercept, which we didn't have from before, but now we figured out is 7. And we've gotten the equation of the line from a description of the line. Okay, let's try another example of this type. We have to be able to write equations of lines from the description. And again, I'm still working on this practice example sheet 2. I'm going to take a bunch of different problems. Again, if you printed it out, you could follow it. It's part of the weekly folder. It happens to be the weekly folder sheet from week 3. We're now we're finishing week 3, so we're going to be finishing this week. Okay. I'm going to erase this and I'm going to put another problem on the board. Okay. This happens to be question number 11 on the sheet. It says write a slope-intercept equation. When they say write a slope-intercept equation, it means write y equals mx plus b. For the line with the given characteristics, it passes through the point 5, -6, and 2, -4. And what we want to write is the y equals mx plus b form of the equation that connect with the line, for the line that connects these 2 points, that's drawn between these 2 points. And if you recall, I just said anytime you want to write the equation of a line, the first thing you want to do is find its slope. So I'm going to pause a little bit and I'm going to give you time to see if you can find the slope. Okay. So we have somebody has sent me an answer that looks great. Let's see if we can do this together now. Thank you, Tahira. Okay. I said the first thing I want you to do is to find the slope of the line. Well, if you remember last week, we talked about what happens when you have 2 points and you want to write the slope of the line. There is what we call the slope formula. Let's write it on the board. where m, that's what we call our slope, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, where the x1 and the y1 go for the first point, and the x2 and the y2 go for the second point. It doesn't matter which you call your first and which you call your second, but I usually call the first point I'm given the x1, y1, and the second point the x2, y2. Don't mix up the x2 with the y1. X1 goes with y1, x2 goes with y2. And that's what these are indicating. The subscripts are just saying first point, second point. So if we do that for this particular line, we're going to take our y2, which is -4, and minus our y1, which is -6. I'm going to have to be careful because there are two negatives here. Over x2, which is 2, minus 5, the x1. Okay. Remembering that when we have a minus and a minus, it converts to a plus. So what we actually get is -4 plus 6, which gives us +2. And 2 minus 5 gives us -3. So our slope is -2/3. Which is exactly what you gave us to hear. Very good. What about writing the equation now? Well, we're halfway there. We have the m. Our equation is y equals -2/3 x plus b. We're going to have to be careful here because this equation happens to have fractions. Makes it a little bit more difficult, but we remember we talked about how to deal with fractions in chapter, when we were dealing with chapter 1. What do we do now? We take either one of the points, the 4, -6, or the 2, -4, and it doesn't matter which one, because this, what we do now works for any point that's on the line, and we happen to know 2 of them, and we stick it into the equation. These numbers look a little bit simpler, so I'm going to take this point, but you could have taken this point just as well. What does that mean? It means where I see an x, I'm going to put a 2, and where I see a y, I'm going to put -4. Again, I could have picked the 5, -6, and then in place of the x, I could have put 5, and in place of the y, I could have put -6. But I picked this point. Okay, let's see what we have here. So we have -4 equals, okay, -2/3 times 2. I'm just going to write that. Because remember, when you have a coefficient and a variable, it means you're multiplying them. And the one thing we don't know is the b. Now, if you recall what I said about fractions, if you have a whole number and a fraction, put your whole number over 1 so it's easier to deal with. So this will give me -4 equals -2/3 times 2. So we're multiplying the numerators. -2 times 2 is -4 over 3 times 1, which is 3, plus b. Now I'm going to put everything over 1. If you remember, I said that when we're dealing with a combination of fractions and whole numbers, it's just easier to deal with it if everything is written as a fraction. And we can make our whole numbers fractions by putting them over 1. And then I see that my common denominator the denominator that all of these numbers will divide into is 3 over 3. So I put the 3 over 1. I'm going to distribute the 3 over 1 so that I'm going to get rid of the fractions. So distributing, I'm getting 3 over 1 times negative 4 over 1 equals 3 over 1 times negative 4 over 3 plus 3 over 1 times b over 1. All I did was put this 3 over 1 next to each term so that I could multiply with it. Okay. Remember, if we can, we try to cross cancel, but here both my denominators are 1. So I just get 3 times 4, which is negative 12, over 1 times 1, which is 1. Over here, I have 3 over 1 times negative 4 over 3. I can cancel out the 3. I cross cancel. So all I'm left with is negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4, over 1 times 1, which is 1. And here, again, nothing cancels out. So I just do 3 of b over 1 times 1, which is 1. And once I have all my denominators being 1, I could just write it negative 12 equals negative 4 plus 3b. And I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So we've got over here negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. These 4s are canceling out, equaling 3b. And to find the b, I have to divide by 3. So my b turns out to be negative 8 over 3. So let's see what we found out. We found out that our slope was negative 2 over 3. Right over here. And we found out that our b was negative 8 over 3 right over here. A lot of work here. So my equation of my line, which is what I'm working on, is y equals negative 2/3 x minus 8/3. And yes, we did have somebody who was able to get that. As I said, this was a difficult problem, mainly because of the fractions. But again, let's review what we had to do. We first used our slope formula to find the slope. And then we took one of the points on the line and stuck it into the equation to get the b. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I give you another one to try? I'm going to give you one to try. Totally. I'm going to give you one that were a little bit easier numbers, because this was hard numbers. Can I erase this now, or are you still copying? Okay, I shouldn't erase it yet. Okay, I'm waiting. Yeah, okay. I'll give you, and remember, you start over here and move your way over to here. And it'll really need a bigger board. It would be nicer, then I could just keep going. Okay, thanks. Are we all right now? Okay. So let's take another problem. I'm gonna leave this formula on the board. Here's the problem. I have 2 points. 6, 3. And -4, 8. Again, there are 2 points on a line. And I want you to write the equation. And again, you're going to want to write the equation in the y equals mx plus b form. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find the slope. Okay, I'm going to erase this over here so it doesn't interfere. So I'm leaving on the slope formula because that's the first thing you're going to be doing. While you're doing that, I'm going to be taking attendance. So listen for your name. Olivia. Olivia August. Isis.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Alvaro. Alvaro Blake. Louis. Louis Cayola.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Emma.
I'm here.
I know I saw you before. Have a good day. Demetrius.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Desmond. Desmond Fleming. Shania. I'm pretty sure I saw you. Shania Haley. Caden. Caden Harris. Kayla Harris.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Sanjita. Sanjita Hossain. Ariana. I know you're here because I spoke to you a few times. Hi. Tahira, I know you're here also because you've been putting things on the chat, which I appreciate. Michaela.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Kiana. Kiana Perez. Carly. Hi, good morning, Carly. Jenna. Jenna Pierre. Tatiana.
Here.
Hi, good morning.
I'm here as well, okay? Jenna Pierre.
Okay, Jenna, good, thanks.
No problem.
Naya, I know you're here.
Morning.
Good morning. Kazandu. Kazandu Small. Trainer Small. Jean Thomas, and I know you're here because you've been answering. No, something's wrong here because I won. Definitely missing people here. Okay, I haven't, can somebody at least put on what they think the slope of this line is? Put on the chat, what you think the slope of the line is. Let's first work on the slope. Okay, I think we have to work on this together. Okay, remember what I told you to do. Pick one of your points to be your x1, y1, and your other point to be your x2, y2. And again, it doesn't matter which you do. Let's see what the slope works out to be. So how do I figure out the slope? I have to do y2 minus y1, which is 8 minus 3 over x2, which is -4 minus 6. Now be very careful. Again, remember, you're allowed to use a calculator, not a graphing calculator, but a regular scientific calculator. You should have one in class with you all the time. Then you can stick into your calculator 8 minus 3. I guess everybody could do that, which gives you 5. And here's where a lot of people will make a mistake. -4 minus 6. Remember, these are both negatives, so when you answer, you get -10. You could stick it into your calculator. If you're sticking it into your calculator and you're not getting the right answer, make sure to see me either before or after class so I can work with you on your calculator and show you how to use your calculator properly. And in any case, if you have a calculator and you're not sure, have a private meeting with me because everybody's going to have a different calculator. I can't give a lesson that applies to every single calculators, but if you want to work with me and your calculator, just make an appointment. We can meet either before or after class or anytime that's convenient for you and me together, of course. So we're left with 5. There is a 5 in it, but don't forget the denominator is -10. The slope is the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. Of course, this could be reduced to -1/2. You should have gotten your slope to be -1/2. Or if you left it 1 over -2 or -1 over +2, that all those are correct answers. 5 over -10 is also a correct answer, but we usually try to reduce. Okay, now that we have the slope, we can go ahead and try and find the equation of the line, which is y equals mx plus b. And we already know what the m is. The m is the slope. It's -1/2. So in place of m, I'm putting in -1/2, and I'm just putting everything back in. And now I take either one of the points, and it doesn't matter which one I take, because I have 2 that work. And I replace, see if I can color coordinate. I'm going to replace the x over here. I'm going to take the first point. They're both positive. They look easy. And I'm going to replace the x. Remember, the first number is the x with 6. Can you see this? I don't know if that comes out clearly. Try to- And the y then I'll have to replace with 3. So what I get then is 3 equals -1/2 times 6 plus b. Now, what I have to first do is multiply the -1/2 times the 6. Remember, that's really a 6 over 1. And then this cross cancels. And the 2 cancels out, and I'm left with -1 times 3. So this ends up being 3 equals -3 plus b. And now I can figure out what the b is by bringing this -3 to the other side. I'm adding 3 to both sides. And that gives me the b equals 6. So my equation comes out to be y equals -1/2 x, that's my slope, plus 6, which is my b. And we have written the equation of the line, and I have a lot of good information about the line. I know the slope of this line is -1/2, which means as you're going from one point to another, you're rising -1, which means you're going down 1, you're running 2. Remember, slope is rise over run. Down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. It's a line that's going down as you go from the left to the right, and it's crossing the y-axis at 6 because the y-intercept is 6. Okay, I'm going to leave this on the board for a minute. And then we're going to try a slightly different problem. Okay. Can I erase this down? I don't see anybody objecting. Okay, thank you, Tatiana. So I want you to listen to this problem. I'm gonna write the important information on the board. Determine the equation of the line described. Okay, we're describing a line. We want to write the equation of the line in the slope-intercept form. It's going through the point -3, -2, and it's parallel to the line. I'm giving you a second line. It's parallel to the line 2x plus 4y equals 8. So listen to this interesting problem. I have an equation that I want to write. I have a line that I want to write the equation of y equals mx plus b. Now, what do I know? The line that I want to write the equation of happens to be parallel. We know what parallel means. It runs right next to it, but never touches it. It's going to be parallel to this line. So this is line number 1 that we want to write the equation of. That's parallel to this line number 2. And the only other thing I know about the equation of the line that I want to write the equation of is that it's going to go through this point. So we have to remember, what does the word parallel mean to us in terms of slope? And if you remember, when you have parallel lines, it means the slopes are the same. Just writing slopes equal. The two lines, if they're going to be parallel, will have to have the exact same slope. So if I could somehow figure out this slope of this line number 2, I would then have the slope of the line that I'm looking for the equation of, because they're the same slope. Well, they gave me the equation of this line number 2, which means if I put this in the y equals mx plus b form, the number in front of the x is going to be its slope, which means that it's going to be the slope of the line that I want to write the equation of also. They have the same slope. So I'm going to put this in the y equals mx plus b form by getting the y alone. So I'll minus 2x for both sides. Which will give me 4y equals negative 2x plus 8. And then I'll divide everything by 4, because I have to get that y alone. So every term has to be divided by 4. So my y number 2 has the equation y equals negative 2 over 4 is negative a half x plus, plus 2. 4 to 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this first line that I told you, the second line that I told you about is a line whose slope is -1/2 and whose y-intercept is 2. Now, that's not the equation of the line that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a line that's going to be parallel to this. Well, parallel means they've got to have the same slope, which means my new line, which I'm calling line number 1, I'm using this, is going to be a line whose slope is going to be a -1/2. So here we are, y equals -1/2 x plus b. We still don't know what the b of this original line that we want to write the equation of is, but we do know its slope. Now remember, when we're writing an equation, the first thing we want to do is find its slope. We did, we found its slope. So now we're going to take the point that I gave you, which is the point -3, -2, and stick it into the equation. Where my x is, I'm going to put -3, just like we've been doing before. And where my y is, I'm going to put -2. So this will give me -2 equals -1/2 times -3, because my x is -3, plus b. Now remember, this we're going to put over 1. Putting these things over 1 so that we can see what's the numerator and what's the denominator, what's on top, what's on bottom. So this is -2 over 1 equals, now nothing cancels out, so I have to multiply the tops. -1 times -3 is +3 over 2 times 1 plus b over 1. And we could either multiply by the common denominator, or we could just try to work with the fractions. I like to, when I'm left with a fraction, I like to multiply by the common denominator, and I see I have a 1, a 2, and a 1. I'm going to multiply everything by 2 over 1. My common denominator is 1 times 2, which is 2. Remember, when we want to get rid of fractions in an equation, we can multiply by the common denominator of 1. It'll get rid of all our fractions. Remember, the first thing we do is distribute. So we're going to have 2 over 1 times -2 over 1 equals 2 over 1 times 3 over 2 plus 2 over 1 times b over 1. Okay, so this becomes 2 times -2, which is -4 over 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, equals, now here, there's a 2 in the denominator, but it's canceling with this 2 in the numerator. So I'm left with 1 times 3, which is 3 over 1, plus, here nothing cancels out, 2b over 1, which means I can now write this with everything is over 1, so I don't need those 1s anymore. I'm coming over here. I could write this as -4 equals 3 plus 2b. Bring the 3 to the other side to solve this for the b. -4 and -3 together give us -6. 7, I'm sorry, -4 plus -3 is -7 equals 2b. Divide by 2. So my b turns out to be -7 over 2. So now I can write my equation. Y equals, well, I know my slope is -1/2 x minus 7 over 2. That's my b. My slope is -1/2. My y-intercept is -7/2. I have now accomplished what I wanted to do, which was write the equation that goes through this point that's parallel to this line. So again, the fact that was parallel gave us information about the slope. Once we had the slope, we could take the point and figure out what the actual equation is. Let me just give you a hint in terms of when you have these type of problems on a multiple choice test. It won't always work this way. But if they tell you write the equation of a line, and they give you choices where one slope is 4, one slope is 2, one slope is 7, and one slope is -0.5, you're going to know the only possible answer would be the one whose slope is -0.5. In other words, sometimes you don't have to do the rest of the problem. If you can look at the answers and see if from the answers you can discover or eliminate some of the possibilities so that you're left with, sometimes there'll be two that have the same slope, but at least then you will have eliminated 2 of your question answers, and you'll only have to pick between 2 instead of 4. Remember, the midterm and the final will be multiple choice tests. They'll be given on Blackboard. I don't have a date yet, but the midterm is towards the middle of the term, the final is at the end. I just want to stop here a minute. Some people might be still copying, so I want to give them some time to mention a few important facts about this course. Number one, if you did not take the Delta Math quiz yet, you can still take it. Really, you're supposed to have a reduced mark for being late. But since this is the first quiz, and if you'll take it now, if you just email me that you would like to take it late, I will eliminate the penalty and let you get the full grade. A few people were not happy with their grades. They emailed me. I allowed them to retake some of those questions because I would like to see you getting good grades on this course. Now, some people might think that the only thing they have to do is do well on the midterm and the final, and then they're okay and they're passing and they're getting. That was the old situation. Now the mark is based not only on the midterm, on the final, but your whole term's work. So don't neglect homework and don't neglect quizzes, because they're a significant portion of your exam. If you haven't been keeping up now, now's the time to start. I will give you an opportunity to do it. But I was disappointed to see that there were several people who never even touched the quiz yet. The quiz, you really have to do it. Again, if you want full credit for that quiz, you're going to have to email me and tell me so that I can change it for you. Otherwise, you're only going to get 80% of your grade. If you don't do it at all, it's definitely going to affect your final grade. Okay. That being the case, Patrice, can I introduce you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to, let's see if I can you open up your,
I'm here.
okay. Okay, so here, I'm going to pin you so that they can see you.
Okay.
I have to remove my pin, I guess. Okay. I'd like to introduce to you today our master tutor. This is Patrice Williams. And she's going to be helping you out on a more individual basis than I'm able to. Are you going to be having tutoring sessions?
Yes. I'm available on Tuesdays between 1 to 3 and Fridays 1 to 3. And I'm flexible.
Okay. And we're going to run into a problem because we both have the same initials.
Oh, yes.
PW, I'm pro.
PW, yes.
And that's how I sign I'm going to have to guess.
I could put my initial in PNW then.
So, okay, how do we make an appointment? I'm gonna get Patrice's information and I'm gonna post it on the Blackboard as information. As I said, I'm also gonna want you to be in a co-instructor on the Blackboard and on the Delta Math.
Okay.
So after class, we're gonna get all that information out to you, and you'll be able to email Patrice, and she'll be able to meet with you at whatever point the two of you can agree on.
Yeah, that works.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. That's good. Thank you.
There was something else I wanted to say, which I don't remember anymore, but it'll come to me. Okay, so now I'm gonna put the pin back on me and so we're back to me again. Again, this is going to be a major help. Just Patrice is going to be here in class with us, and whatever additional help we'll need, or even if during class you can go to her, you can pin her, or send her a chat. I'm wondering if I can make her a co-host. That's what I'm going to try and do. I don't know if there's a way of making her a co-host. But sometimes I'll make her the host and I'll sit back. Okay, so let's continue with what we've been doing here and do a somewhat similar problem that has to do with writing equations of lines. Just like we can write the equation of lines that are parallel, we can write equations of lines that are perpendicular. Let's say I'll have an equation like this. We want to write an equation that's perpendicular to the line. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. And passing through the point, it's a little bit different, and has an x intersect of -4. Okay, we're back to this. We have a description of a line, and we're trying to figure out what the equation of this line is that we have a description of. Notice I'm not even bothered to draw the line because they didn't ask me to draw it. They just want the equation, the y equals mx plus b of this new equation. This is what we want to write. We want to write y equals mx plus b, the equation of a line that's going to be perpendicular to this line and also has an x-intercept of -4. It's crossing the x-axis at -4. Now, let's deal with the slope first. Remember, I told you, when you want to write the equation of a line, the first focus you have to have is on the slope. What is the slope of the line that I'm going to be writing the equation of? Now remember, this is the original line, and number 1 is the line we're writing the equation of. Number 2 is the original line they were talking about. The two lines that we're dealing with here are going to be perpendicular. Now remember, perpendicular means that they're forming right angles. But what does that mean in terms of their slope? Does anybody recall what we said? See if you can say, either tell me in person or put it on the chat. What does it mean that two lines are perpendicular? What do we know about their slopes? You can look back in your notes.
Isn't it reciprocal?
Yeah, say it louder. Very good.
Wait, you want me to say it again? It's reciprocal, right?
Is it just the reciprocal? It's the reciprocal, and also, does it have the same sign?
No, it's negative.
Right. What we call the opposite reciprocal. Excellent, Kayla. The slope of this original line, the M here, is -2/3. So the slope over here is not going to be -2/3. It's not the same slope. The lines are perpendicular, so the slope is, as she said, the opposite or negative reciprocal. You have to flip over the number. Reciprocal means take your fraction and make the numerator the denominator and the denominator the numerator. In other words, turn it upside down, which will give you the 3 on top and the 2 on the bottom. And since this one was negative, this one has to be positive. It has to be the opposite sign. One will be positive, one will be negative, because one line is going to be going down and one line is going to be going up in order for them to be perpendicular. And the slopes are reciprocals. So I already know what the slope of my line is going to be. My line is going to be y equals 3 over 2 x plus b. Remember, when we want to write the equation of the line, that's the first step that we're going to be taking. We're going to try and find its slope. Well, we still have to work on the b. Now, look at what they told me as an additional piece of information. The x-intercept is -4. Now, the x-intercept is not the b. The b is the y-intercept. How are we going to get the b from this piece of information? Well, if you remember, if we're on a graph, here's where the x-intercept would be of -4. It would be right over here. It would be crossing the x-axis at the -4 point, which means that that's the point -4, 0. Anytime they give you an x-intercept, they're giving you a point where the y is 0. Anytime you're given a y-intercept, you're giving a point with the x being 0. It's just the opposite. With the x-intercept, the y is 0. With the y-intercept, the x is 0. So in this case, we do have a point on the line. The point is going to be the point -4, 0, which means I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to replace the x with -4 and the y with 0. So that I'll get 0, which I've been writing 0, 1 because I see fractions, equals 3 over 2 times -4 over 1 plus b over 1. Again, wherever I see fractions, I like to put everything equal to fractions by putting the whole numbers over 1. Otherwise, it gets confusing as what's on top, what's on bottom. So 0 over 1 equals, well, the first thing I have to do is get this. So here I see the 2 over here is going to cancel into the -4. So be left with a -2. So this becomes 3 times -2, which is -6 over 1, plus b over 1. Now, since everything is over 1, once we know that everything is over 1, we really don't need to put in those ones. In other words, we have 0 equals -6 plus b. And of course, to get what the b is, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Which means my b, my y-intercept turned out to be 6. And my equation then is y equals, here's my slope, here's my b, 3 over 2x plus 6. Again, when you're doing this on a multiple choice test, the first thing you look for is to get the right slope, because sometimes they only have one solution that has the correct slope. So if you can pick out the one with the right slope, you don't even have to go to the rest of the problem, because that's the only possible answer that'll work. Okay, I'm now going to give you one to try on your own. Wait, I'm going to leave this on the board for a second. I'm going to write the problem on the other side of the board. Okay, here's the problem that I want you to do. I want you to write an equation of a line that's going to be parallel to the line y equals, no, let's I'm sorry. 5x plus y equals 7 and has a y-intercept of 3. Okay, again, I'm describing a line. The line, here's my line. I want to write the equation of y equals mx plus b. That's going to be parallel to this line 2. 5x plus y equals 7. But the line that I'm talking about is also going to have a y-intercept of 3. See if you could come across, again, the first thing I want you to do is figure out what is the slope of your line going to be. And what I'd like you to put on the chat is what you think the slope of the line has to be. I don't have to write the equation on the whole line right now, but everybody should send in a chat that they think what the slope of the line is going to be. Right, I'm gonna start working on this I'm gonna erase this. Does anybody still need this on the board? Thank you, Tatiana. Okay, so we're starting out with this line 5x plus y equals 7. And we wanted, this is our equation number 2. We want to write equation number 1, y equals mx plus b. We want to write an equation of line that's going to be parallel to this line. So therefore, we know that we have to write an equation of line with the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So when you have parallel lines, you don't have to do anything to the slope. What we have to do is find out what is the slope of this original line, and that'll be the slope of my new line. Well, the problem with this is that the equation is not in the y equals mx plus b form. The first thing I have to do is take that line that they gave me the equation of and put it in the y equals mx plus b form. Which means I've got to bring this 5x to the other side. Which means I'm then going to get y equals negative 5x plus 7. Which tells me that the slope of the line was negative 5. Once we have y equals mx plus b, we know the slope of the line. But again, my new line, the line they want me to write the equation of, is going to be a parallel line. So my new line is also going to have a slope of negative 5. So my new line is going to be y equals negative 5x plus 7. Not plus 7, plus b. Plus 7 was the original one. What we now, once we fit in the slope, the m, now we work on the b. Well, now we're really lucky because they told me that the y-intercept of the line that I want to write the equation of is 3. Well, the y-intercept is the b. So it must mean that the b is equal to 3. I don't have to do any work because they told me what the y-intercept was. Before, when they told me what the x-intercept was, I couldn't stick that right into the equation because it's not the way the sloping equation goes. But in the y equals mx plus b form of the equation, the m is the slope, the b is the y-intercept. I might know my slope is negative 5. My y-intercept is 3. So here's my equation. Y equals negative 5x plus 3. Okay. I think we're going to stop here. And because this is pretty heavy stuff. We're going to continue with, we'll review this, but we're going to continue with some other types of examples that have to do with equations of the line. Hopefully on Wednesday, we will be finishing chapter 2. Look out for any homework on Delta Math. I'll try to remember to send you a reminder that I have posted something on Delta Math and when it's due. Is there anybody who has a question they want to ask me? Okay, then I'm going to, I think everybody can leave. I'm turning off the recording.